I mean, I don't think Kamala
inferior.
did well either, but she did accomplish what she set out to accomplish.
I don't think she did a good job, but she accomplished everything she set out to accomplish.
Whenever Trump is talking, Kamala's making all these like very, to me, obviously performative fake faces.
Yeah, she was trying to get under his skin, and it worked. Oh no, she was prepared. This is politics. This is a political debate. A political debate is war. Let's get to Sitch and Adam. What did they have to say about this?
There's a lot of anger towards the moderators, which, I understand because, you talk about it was a 3v1 and, the moderators obviously seem to be much more biased towards Kamala, which is true. And you have kind of the JD Vance weird gaslight phenomenon happen again, that the left has manufactured another very effective political way to frame it, where they say, oh, if you're complaining about the moderators, if you're complaining about the refs, that means you're losing. And I'm like, okay, right. Like that's a good point, and it's kind of true, but it doesn't dissuade from the fact that they were biased towards Kamala. So it kind of just gets the right, like more riled up and more angry and feeling more kind of like gaslit by the whole.
Adam, if you guys didn't know, I was actually trying to play nice with Adam because I thought like, oh, it'd be interesting to have like conversations with them. Like I'm more interested in having conversations with people that I disagree with. I don't necessarily think that conversations with people that you fully agree with is all that interesting. I mean, that being said, I think like what we're doing on the podcast is good because there's like, even though we're all on the left, we do find a lot of like disagreement. So that's fun. But yeah, I definitely like wanted to like have more conversations. And bro, I started reacting to Adam's tweets, and my theory is that he didn't like that I was getting like likes on his tweets. Like I would hop in his replies when he would say some things that I thought were questionable, and then I some of those tweets would get like a considerable amount of likes or whatever. And I'm pretty sure that got it under his skin, and he started getting so aggro in his rhetoric. He started getting so aggressive. It was like starting to get really heated. And then it ended with him calling me a and it wasn't even like an intense argument. It was like a textbook Anchorman, like, boy, that escalated quickly. Like it was a textbook one of those things. And then he blocked me.
And I think that the biggest thing that he really ceded ground to Kamala is that, for the entire time that Kamala entered the race, the number one complaint against her that we've heard is, what are her policies? What are her policies? What are her policies? This would have been the time to showcase that for Trump to be like,
she doesn't have any policies. Yeah.
Right. Now, technically, Trump doesn't really have that many policies either, but I wonder if he could kind of skate by because he was already president. So people give it.
Like, I wonder, were they aware that she put out a policy page on her website? I always thought the criticism about her not having a policy page was a little bit silly because it's like, bro, she just became the candidate. Like, you have to figure out what your platform is. And that's a careful process, She only had like the last month and a half.
He should have been challenging her to actually explain any of this stuff in any capacity whatsoever. And he didn't do any of that. And so I think this is why, even from the right, there's a perception that Trump lost, is because he didn't.
I don't think she would have had any problem explaining, like, I would sign the bipartisan immigration bill into law. Like, I don't think she would have any problem describing what's in the immigration bill. I don't think she would have any problem describing her policy to give to. I think that would have been a mistake for Trump, because then you're just giving her a platform to talk about, like, oh, sure, these are the things that I want to do. And then you talk about the $25,000 assistance for first-time home buyers. You talk about the targeting of people that use like a specific like landlords that collude to keep the prices high. Talking about price gouging. I don't think she would have had a problem at all going into detail on policy. It's kind of insane that people just think that she's like this ditzy moron. It's like, have you heard her speak? There was an article that came out like 2 weeks ago too, where there were people that worked for her before, or worked for her early on when she was vice president. But according to them, they were saying that she has really high expectations for her staffers. When she would get briefings in the morning, she would question the people that were giving her briefings. She would like quiz them to make sure that they were on top of what they were telling her, because she didn't want anybody giving her briefings that didn't know what they were talking about. By all accounts, she's extremely detail oriented. For the last 2 weeks, I've seen nothing but MAGA people like Cat Turd and all those people. They've been accusing her of being like a full-on alcoholic, like a dummy alcoholic, like an idiot who's an alcoholic, and she's just out of it all the time. And it's like, how did you come up with this? You know what? And they had a rude awakening last night. Okay. That was a stupid thing. It was a stupid thing to do.
I mean, I
It
don't
is
think Kamala
infuriating.
did well either, but she did accomplish what she set out to accomplish.
Yeah.
What? I don't think she did a good job, but she accomplished everything she set out to accomplish. I'm sorry, what? If you have like a laundry list of goals that you want to get done during some task, and then you get all those goals done, you did a good job.
It is
also-
infuriating that there is so much undetected cheating going on. That just gets
Right.
under people's skin. The unfairness of it. Oh, so triggering.
That's true. And then another thing is that, and we talked about this a little bit last night, is that, and it's funny because the Republicans kind of
What?
did this again.
What is he is he talking about the moderators here, or is he saying that she got the questions in advance or something? Like, what's he saying here?
Worked with Biden, I guess, but they kind of backfired with Kamala, was that the expectations for Kamala were so low that
Yeah.
she didn't have to perform that well to surpass those expectations.
Bro, Trump set those expectations super low. The expectations were low in MAGA world because they all convinced themselves that she was a ditzy alcoholic. My expectations for her were super high. Super high. I've been telling you guys for a month and a half, I'm like, she's gonna murder him. She's gonna assassinate his political career. I've been telling you guys, like, it's gonna be brutal. Like I told you guys this. I set the bar super high. I don't know what other who was setting the bar super low for her. I feel like she had a high bar to meet. She had to be perfect. She really did. She had to be perfect. The expectations for Trump are already so low. Like, we already know what Trump's going to do. He's just going to get up there and blather and blah, 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 and lie out the side of his mouth for 45 minutes or an hour and a half or whatever. Nobody had high expectations for Trump. She had to go in there and like basically be perfect. If she made any like even just like little mistakes here and there, she would have been ripped apart.
And I think it's another reason it's very interesting. A lot of people, they perceive that both sides, whatever side they're on, they perceive that the other side is filled with knowing liars. Okay.
Yeah.
Say, oh, like if you're on the left, you're like, everyone on the right knows that Donald Trump is a stupid, unhinged maniac, and they're all lying when they say otherwise. And everyone on the right says, oh, everyone on the left knows that Kamala Harris is a vapid, dumb bird who just says platitudes and doesn't have any policies, right? And they're lying when they say otherwise. And that's not really true. Both
Not true
sides
at
are kind
all.
of like gaslighting themselves into buying their own hype.
Every politician, to one extent or another, engages in hyperbole, lies by omission, spin. This is very, very common in politics. It's kind of the art of politics. There isn't a single politician serving in Congress or who has ever served in the White House that hasn't engaged in some level of, we'll say, deception. This is really baked into politics. And, you know, how you feel about that, we can set that aside, right? Like, we can all wish that politicians were more honest or whatever. But the reality is like, you can't have a career in politics unless you know how to rhetorically sort of practice some of these things to one extent or another. What MAGA people and right-wing people fail to recognize, understand, admit to themselves is that Donald Trump's dishonesty is a whole other level. He takes things to a degree that we rarely, if have ever seen in American politics. He is up there talking about the people eating the dogs is like a really good example of that. He talks about windmills causing cancer. He tells people that he was Michigan's Man of the Year. You know what I mean? That's different from like, you know, maybe manipulating statistics to drive some kind of a narrative. It's a whole other level of lying. It's a whole other level of dishonesty. He talks about intentionally letting cannibals into the country. We are well beyond, far beyond the pale here. And MAGA people, right-wing people, and the enlightened centrist types like Adam and Sitch, they just don't recognize that this is so plainly the case, that Trump is just uniquely dishonest. I mean, every time, literally, every single time Donald Trump opens his mouth, there is some level of lies going on there. Every single time. And there were a couple things that Kamala got wrong in the debate. There were a couple things that she got fact checked on. For example, she said that Donald Trump left the Biden administration with the worst level of unemployment since the Great Depression. That is not true. We had higher levels of unemployment in the Great Recession about 14 years ago, whenever that was. So there were a few moments like that for Kamala too. But it's just, when it comes to Trump, he just takes it to a whole other level.
And this is why the Kamala Harris thing is important, is that I think the right kind of gaslit themselves to some extent into Kamala being like 10 IQ points.
Yep. Yeah, they
It's-
totally did.
Right. Which was never, it was never the case. Like, no, she was someone who was awkward and nervous and she was too afraid to like have positions that were not workshopped and all this stuff. But as long as you prepare enough like general statements, you can perform, moderately well. And basically
all right, well, at least they acknowledge that. At least they acknowledge that it was foolish of right wingers to trick themselves into thinking that she was a moron. That was stupid of them.
Exact prediction about the debate is exactly what happened in terms of how both sides performed. I think because the right sort of like gaslit themselves or hyped themselves into so much of this frenzy of Kamala being so stupid that when she just wasn't that level of stupidity, they're like, oh, and that's kind of what made them like demoralized the next morning or that night.
Well, Kamala her and her team are analyzing that debate. They're going to work on improving her game. I've said this before. It's a completely different situation with Trump because I'm not sure Trump can sit down with a bunch of smart people and look at his debate performance and take feedback from those people and improve if they were to do another debate.
No, he's not teachable. He's not a teachable guy. I'm sure he thought, I'm sure he believes that he had a good debate night. I'm sure Donald Trump has found a way to convince himself that, he executed it flawlessly last night. So his cup is full. Like when someone's cup is full like that, it's like, you can't really, how do you expect to sort of guide him? But all of this is a moot point anyways, because I don't think he's going to agree to debate her again. I really don't. I would be so shocked. If I were Kamala right now, if I were on her team, I would say challenge him to a Fox News debate. I think she would do just fine. I mean, I think it would be challenging. It was certainly more challenging than the one that she did last night, but she could do it. And if I were her, man, I have faith in your candidate, have faith in your own skills, take up that challenge. Pete Buttigieg does it all the time. Gavin Newsom does it all the time. Hop into the lion's den, do that. And it's a perfect opportunity to possibly convince some Fox News viewers that maybe she's not a total moron, listen, I'm not saying it's going to be 10% or even 5%, but if you can convince 1, 2, 3% of Fox News viewers, like maybe she's actually not as bad as I thought she was, that could make a difference when the margins matter as much as they do right now. She needs every little bit. Of course, the other side of that coin is that she had such a strong showing that if Donald Trump just wants to leave it there, there's an argument to be made that maybe that's the right move too. Like, okay, fine. That'll be our only debate. That'll be the only thing that people see of our exchange. It's just me dog walking you for an hour and a half. My personal preference is that I think she needs to have an aggressive media schedule for this final sprint. I don't think she can justify not doing interviews anymore. I could kind of make sense of it in the beginning while she was like getting everything together and, figuring out her platform and figuring out her VP and figuring out her staff and blah, 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 blah. Like all of that makes sense to me. But now that we're in the final sprint, I think she really needs to get out there and start doing like a lot more interviews.
Yeah. I mean, my intuition is generally like, yes, it's harder for Trump to change course. Kamala seems to be the empty vessel who's much more willing to change course. So they have different problems. Trump's problem is both their problems are themselves, but in different ways. Trump's problem is that I feel like he does have the skill and the ability to correct, but his ego won't let him maybe correct.
Where is Sitch getting this idea that Trump has the ability to correct himself? The very notion of such a thing implies humility and honest self-reflection. If you're going to work on yourself and correct some flaw or refine your style or improve some aspect of something that you do, you need to be honest with yourself and say, well, I need help or I need to work on this thing. And Donald Trump is just, he's like pure super id, Freudian, like super ego 24/7. I don't know where Sitch is getting this idea of like, well, I think Trump can like, improve himself. Like, where are you getting that?
Take criticism where Kamala, she's totally willing, I think, to just kind of let someone tell her what to do, but she just doesn't have a good vibe. I don't think she's ever had a good vibe. She comes off kind of very, weak, nervous, stumbly sort of.
Concepts of a plan.
I just, you don't need to be a fan of Kamala's policies to recognize that for the last 7 weeks, she has exuded confidence and poise. She has not come across, she looked a little nervous for like the first 5 minutes of this debate, a little bit. And that's normal, like a human being, like you got 60 million people watching you. Of course, there's going to be some nerves there or whatever. But it took her 5 minutes, and then she genuinely looked like she was having a good time. She was smiling. She was looking at him the entire time. She walked right up to him, shook his hand. Where is this narrative coming from that she is this awkward, meek, self-conscious, nervous person? Where are they getting that?
Can she course correct for that though? That's the question. Like,
I don't think she can. Not in this short a time span.
Is it something that's just innate? I mean, she has stopped the jackhammer laugh.
That is true.
You don't hear the that laugh is just like piercing.
It's true. That is that is a good point. She did stop that.
It's just not even true. We've seen clips of her laughing in the last like 6 weeks. What are they talking about, bro?
Kamala is doing all these like faces.
Yeah.
This was like one of the most prominent parts of the debate to me. Whenever Trump is talking, Kamala's making all these like very, to me, obviously performative fake faces.
Yeah.
Like you knew that she studied these faces in a mirror for like 2 weeks before this debate.
Yeah, she was trying to get under his skin, and it worked. Oh no, she was prepared. Oh no, she went in with a game plan and then executed on that game plan. This is politics. This is a political debate. This is not sitting down for a podcast and kind of going off the cuff about whatever. A political debate is war. You are going to war with someone. You have to be prepared. You have to go in with a game plan. You have to go in with the confidence that you'll be able to execute on that game plan. She very clearly went into this debate with a game plan of rattling him, getting under his skin, taunting him, baiting his insecurities, baiting his narcissism. And she wildly succeeded. They're like, oh, well, she's doing all these faces. Well, yeah, this is fucking war, bro. I mean, look how he reacted. It obviously worked. That means they were prepared. They were well prepared. That's what that means. I like presidents that are well prepared.
And I was curious to see how people would react to these faces. I react to them very poorly. I mean, I also have a bias towards things that to me seem like extra performative.
If that's true, how could you have anything other than utter contempt for Trump? His entire persona is being performative. Every time he opens his mouth, he's always putting pepper on it. He's always doing some self-aggrandizing, making it about himself. If you have a problem with performative politics, you should loathe Donald Trump.
The curious thing is, all today I've been looking and watching all sorts of people on the left and the right and the center sort of give their breakdown on the debate. And I noticed the only people that were really bringing up the faces at all were like the deep left, like the deep, like slurping up the Kamala, like propaganda.
Oh, they
people.
loved it, huh?
Right.
I wonder, do these people know that the deep left hate Kamala? They hate her. Are you kidding me? They actually hate her more than they hate Trump. Truly. They despise her. It's the resist libs. She's like our Captain Marvel, right? We're just lapping it up. The deep left hate her.
The interesting thing to me is that when I looked at most people, not everyone, but when I looked at most people who were more, even the people that were pro Kamala, but were more towards the center, and the people that were, more towards the right, most of them didn't even bring up the faces at all. They didn't even talk about them.
Right. So there was no downside to it then.
Again, that's how you know she did a good job. Everybody's talking about Trump today. Everybody's talking about what a bad debate performance he gave. Everybody's talking about the fact that he accused Haitians of eating cats. Everybody's talking about how he was rattled, how she got under his skin. It's a good thing that not a lot of people are talking about her and her faces. That means she did her job. It exactly worked the exact way that she wanted it to work. She was just so well prepared for every answer. So she would be asked, sometimes tough questions, and she would find a way to defend herself in a really effective way, and then she would throw a jab, and then she would go back to defending herself a little bit, and then she would throw a jab. And then it goes over to Trump, and he's just like, well, what she said about my crowd sizes was stupid. Nobody leaves my crowd. My crowds are great. And that's precious time. I mean, they had 2 minutes per answer. 2 minutes. In chess, we call this tempo, or some people call it time. There's a concept of tempo. If you're making a move that your opponent has to respond to, you can kind of control the pace and the position of the board. You want to be the one that's making a move that your opponent is reacting to. If your opponent is forcing you to react to their decisions. Now you're playing their game and you're on defense. But it's a perfect one-to-one analogy when we're talking about the debate. She had the tempo the whole debate. I mean, it was just a masterclass. It really was.
I think part of what Kamala was trying to accomplish in that debate was the same thing she's been trying to accomplish for her entire campaign, which is I need to get a bunch of energy going and a bunch of positive energy going on like the internet left. And it's kind of interesting. People were saying Trump was too online in this debate, which I agree with. But I feel like
I'm super online, so I'm not really one to like judge people, but this feels like such a super online take. Kamala is not trying to target the super online left. You know who she's trying to target? She's trying to target suburban women, moderate voters, Haley primary voters. She's not targeting like undergrads with a hammer and sickle in their profile on Twitter.
So I have I don't know why you sent me this New York Times tweet about attacks and issues, how Harris-Trump debate played out. I noticed this is another common narrative on the left.
Mm-hmm.
So the right is saying, look, the moderators were bad. They cheated. And a lot of the retort from the left is, but Trump spoke for so much longer. How were they cheating? I mean,
right.
Weren't they cheating in favor of Trump? They let him speak all of this time. Well, yeah, he spoke more because they kept asking him pointed questions like, how long has it been since you beat your wife?
Well, I think it was that. It was also, one of the things that the moderator.
I mean, listen, if you expect a moderator to not ask questions about abortion and January 6th, like, what do you think we're doing here? I mean, these are they asked questions about the issues that people give a about. They ask questions about immigration. They ask questions about the economy. They ask questions about climate change. They ask questions about preserving democracy, January 6th. They ask questions about abortion. They ask questions about literally like every question that they asked related to like what voters want to hear them talk about. What do you mean? Like they asked, when was the last time you beat your wife? Like, obviously they didn't literally say that, but like, should they not ask questions about January 6th? You don't think that this is on voters' minds? She got tough questions too, and she was prepared for them. She answered questions about immigration expertly. She got grilled about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and she handled that question perfectly.
And it's interesting because if you look at this tweet, you can see not only did Trump speak more, but he also attacked Kamala significantly less, which is kind of fascinating too.
Because she put him on the defense. This is evidence that she did a good job. The reason why it's so lopsided is because he was spending most of his time defending himself.
It'd be interesting if on that thing was like time spent defending yourself, right? Because I wonder if Trump was, assuming Trump was
that
way
would be
higher.
good.
Yeah. And exactly. It worked. She played him. She dog walked him. Yes, now you're getting it. I hope that I could be objective in this spot, but like, how could they not say like, hey, good on her, like, I don't like her. I don't like the things that she did. I don't like her policies, but hey, like she obviously, why is it so hard to like give her credit? Like she obviously did such a good job.
And then you can see it's interesting on this one, Kamala talked a lot more about the economy. Trump talked a lot more about immigration, obviously. Right. He brought I actually feel like that number has to be wrong. I feel like he literally talked about immigration every single answer.
Yes, he
brought
did.
it back to immigration.
He tried to.
Yeah.
That was my feeling about it. Yeah, I think it definitely was crafted for the internet. It was a lot of bite-sizable clips. That's another thing I think will influence people is that the media is gonna like play a bunch of clips and they'll play like the choice.
These are the same guys that like, I don't want to, maybe they didn't say this, but like, these are the same guys that are probably said something along the lines of, oh, Trump is so good at manipulating the media. And that was like an unironic compliment, like I'll bet you anything that both of these guys have said, like Trump is so good at playing the media. He's so good. That's what everybody was saying in 2016. And yet they're using it as like it's almost like a negative for her. Like, oh yeah, she did this for the internet clicks. It's like, well, yeah, sounds like a good strategy. Maybe Trump should have done that. Jesus Christ.